Welcome aboard. This is the Miles to Go podcast. And now here's your host, Ed Pizza.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Miles to Go podcast. We took a left-hand turn because Mr. Kerr was supposed to be in New York, but it seems that his crystal ball worked well when the ATC effectively shut down in the New York area, which we'll get to in just a few minutes. Got a bunch of stories on track. We're going to go through a bunch of travel stuff that's on the docket today, including some stuff about Southwest A-List, some status match offers that are out there. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on. But Mr. Kerr, I'm hoping that you bought a Powerball ticket when you made the decision not to brave the trip to New York City, and then shortly thereafter making that decision, having the inbound radar system went down.
It's really easy bet to win when every single day is a disaster trying to fly into New York City. So, and that would have even gotten the first flight out of the day would have been messed up when the radar failed. Which was a couple of days ago as of recording. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you have to be in New York for any reason, just fly in the day before and hope that you even get there then. It is unbelievably stressful. I was supposed to be on a 6:40 a.m. flight Monday morning, which would have been a 3:30 a.m. wake up. I was getting into bed Sunday night. Emily was not feeling well at all. We had first week of soccer practice. Tom had baseball, a lot of stuff going on here at home. And as I was going to bed, I was like, you know what? It's just not going to happen this week. Just not doing it. So here I am still in good old Georgia.
Good old Georgia. And as we well know, the good old New York City doesn't seem to have the best backup systems for some of their critical systems. And there was a failure in the radar system that led to some pretty ugly delays. I mean, things got worked out, don't get me wrong, but I think to your point, I think it's a good example of how that ATC system is right on the edge of overload on pretty much any given day. And that has this domino effect throughout the country. So,
yeah. Dude, sometimes I fantasize about commuting to Wichita, Kansas, where you just land, walk 3 minutes to the rental car, and 15 minutes later you just are where you need to be. That would be such instead of my heart going up to 100 beats per minute every single time I'm leaving for the airport, it would just be still chilling back in the 60s. The easiest day in the world. Literally, anytime I get on a plane to anywhere else, I'm like, wow, this is really easy compared to what I'm usually doing.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I don't have as many of those trips as I used to, but there was something to be said for, landing in Santa Fe. Have you been to Santa Fe Airport?
See, Santa Fe is out west in New Mexico. Have not. Only out the Albuquerque Sunport, never to Santa Fe.
I have done Albuquerque Sunport too as well, but you might be a little bit too young for this. But way back in the day when I was a kid, out in front of the grocery stores, there used to be these systems of rollers where they would roll the guy would bag up your groceries and they would roll out on this little rack, and the rolling rack would have the groceries up ready so you could pull your car up and load them in. Well, the baggage claim facility at Santa Fe is probably about the size of my office, and there's just one little rolling rack where they roll the 6 check bags from your flight in. And as you walk out of baggage claim, you're at the ticket counter, and then 15 seconds later, you're at your car. And to your point, there's something about not having to visit a rental car facility that's 15 minutes away from baggage claim. That's a peaceful, serene sort of feeling, Mr. Kerr.
Mm. I look forward to it. So if anybody's hiring in Tulsa, Wichita, Des Moines, just send me a note and we'll chat. And if you're listening from Bilt, I'm just kidding. I'm not going anywhere.
I was just on a call with a high level executive from a competitor of Five Guys, having a conversation, and this person is based in New York, and the conversation started out with, "Well, when I was in Des Moines last week," and I was like, "Wait, what?" Anyway, let's do some housekeeping. And as you'll remember, we had that wonderful review from last week talking about you, and we got a couple follow-up comments on that here in just a second. But first off, from a housekeeping standpoint, if you are just tuning in, a couple of things you can do that really help the show. First off, like us on whatever platform you're listening to. Subscribe, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, all that stuff is also a big help for us. And then if you have a minute, just leave us a review. That's super awesome, and a rating. Those things are all super helpful to us. And speaking of reviews and ratings, first off, we have another review that I'll go over, and then we have some people that replied. Richard, you can always send us comments. We'll talk about how to do that in just a second. We're happy to reply. But JC Report, or JC Rapport, depending on how you pronounce that, says 5 stars. Unlike other Points and Miles podcasts, these are normal guys. Which one of us? Are we both normal?
You are very. Anyways, go ahead with
who are taking reasonable trips within a regular person's parameters. Great advice on traveling with kids as well. Love the banter. Very approachable for the person opening their first credit card to the Points nerd. And I think I'd just say I think that's one of the things I hope we always continue to emphasize on this show is, like just because you and I collectively have, 150 credit cards between us doesn't mean that the majority of people listening do or need to. And that, we always want to keep the show, really addressable for people who only have one or maybe two credit cards in their wallet.
Dude, I was thinking last night about, first of all, thanks for the review. Appreciate that. I do enjoy flying in the pointy end of the plane, but I am often back over the wings in the exit row. I feel like this, back in my day, this old man speech here, but dude, when is the last time a new Points of Miles blogger came out that has stuck around or created content that's continued to be shared? Everybody that still exists today was around 10 years ago. Like maybe I'm missing somebody, and if that's you, I'm sorry. Like, please send me your stuff. But like now it's just an Instagram shows up that says get 1,700 credit cards because this is how I get paid, and it's like that's like just doesn't seem as fun as it was 10 years ago when you were following these folks who were just up and coming like you. So. Look, I think half of it, man, is creating a blog, as you and I know, is freaking hard work, dude, especially if you're doing it for the first 2-3 years without ever making $1. You just have to do it because you love it. I would love to see, quote unquote, the next generation of bloggers come out, but nobody reads the interwebs anymore. People just endlessly scroll on 15-second videos, or now actually, dude, they're so long now. Like, all right, ladies and gentlemen, if you're in part 6 of showing me how you remodeled your backyard, just condense that bad boy on down. Let me get it. You might get me for part 2. After that, I'm out. Like, why does it have to be so long? That was like the most old man, like, okay, boomer comment I've ever made. But like, really, like, there needs to be a next generation of talent coming into this space that's not just here to make videos of look at my business class seat and how many credit cards you can sign up for. Like, really talk about travel. Really talk about the intricacies of these programs and the nerdy screenshot by screenshot stuff that's still really cool today. People just, I don't know, man. We'd love to see it.
Yeah, I think, I don't know that it's likely to happen, unfortunately, just because of how things have changed with, Google and AI moving the numbers around and a lot of this stuff. But I do think, I still enjoy writing. I'm trying to write more, but it is tough. And I think
really hard.
To your point, the money part of it really comes down to, they've got to find a way to monetize, and for a lot of people, that's just in front of the eyeballs on Instagram and TikTok. And so that's just a very different type of content. You don't get a chance to have these sorts of conversations. I think one of the reasons why I've loved recording the show for as long as we've done it, I think I'm on like 6 years now, it's just, like we get to talk about things in depth, which we're going to talk about a bunch of stuff today that affects people. So I just think that's valuable for a certain group of folks, and maybe not for everyone. Look, there's people out there that only want to talk to guys who promote a strategy of 15 credit cards in your wallet. That's fine. It's just, that's really never going to be me. So for folks who want to leave us a comment or a question, you can do so. Email ed@pizzainmotion.com. You can hit both of us up on social media. He's at Kerpoints. I'm at Pizza in Motion. The show is Miles to Go Podcast. You can also text us or leave us a voicemail at 571-293-6659. And lastly, you can leave us a comment on any of the platforms. For example, Mr. Kerr, just for you, I have 2 comments from YouTube. These folks seem to have been listening and or watching very astutely. The first one is Mr. Love Movies 88 says, no one should say, I'm a good-looking guy as a defense. I think this is in reference to a recent comment by Mr. Kerr. He says, we need to take a Slack poll, which we'll talk about in just a second.
I don't like where this is going.
This may be a Slack member. Is Richard good looking? Let the viewers decide.
Look, I've already decided that, so I don't care what y'all's opinion is. The end.
I know you've already decided it. It's too bad it's not a decisive victory. At Traveling Steven says, I think the listener was thinking Richard would look like Rhett Butler with his deep Southern voice.
Is that a desirable look, ladies and gents? Like, y'all let me know. I don't know.
I think you get the Rhett Butler used to have you can do like the one eye squint, turn the head to the side a little bit. That is doing your Rhett Butler impersonation.
I last watched
Do you know who Rhett Butler
whenever I last watched Rhett Butler whenever my grandmother was watching some black and white movies, so it's been a few years since I've seen or thought about old Rhett.
Oh, I love it. Well, thank you very much to Mr. Love Movies, Mr. I Love Movies 88, and at Traveling Steven. Those were great. I love those. Those gave me a good laugh. They did mention a Slack poll, which is a great time to mention. If you want to support the show, you can spend a couple bucks every month and be a part of our version of a Patreon community, except you get access to travel experts like Richard and I. A bunch of different Slack channels where you can ask questions of us. We also do weekly happy hours. As long as my schedule permits. We have one scheduled tonight. And then we do quarterly meetups. We're having one at my house in just about a week. And then we're working on one at Disneyland later in the fall, which hopefully Mr. Kerr will be able to come to and get his first viewing of Club 33. That's what we're hoping for, Mr. Kerr.
You mean my first viewing of Disneyland, which I've never been to.
Whoa, you've never been to Disneyland?
We've talked about this at least 8 episodes. I've never been.
Okay. Well, I'm old and I'm forgetful. So that's what we're going to chalk that up to. But let's dive into some of these topics today. I think where I want to start, just because we talked a bunch about Southwest last week, I want to talk about Southwest and some of these A-list promotions, if you will. So there's, first off, Southwest A-list is their version of call it elite status. It's, it's certainly not as rewarding as other elite statuses just because Southwest doesn't have a lot of benefits that they can offer. But is their version of elite status, and it comes with things like, priority boarding and things like that. And obviously could come with a lot of different things as they change their program. And so they're doing some things now to incentivize people, and they're actually a bunch of different options. There's double qualifying points. You can buy points towards A-list status, which some people might choose if they're close. Credit cards, and then also with bonus points with partner activity. So if you're using things like car rental or hotel or shopping portals or stuff like that. I guess 2 questions I'd have for you. First off, what do you think of the fact that Southwest has all of these promotions right now to try to push people to A-list? And then second, any thoughts on what they might offer for, within this new undefined plan?
This is really curious to me because my comment in pre-show was, well, what are you going to get if you complete this? I mean, I'm looking through the blogs, right? 5 separate things that they're doing. Double points for everybody, triple points if you book through one of their business outlets, which is their SWA Biz program or GDS. 2,000 tier qualifying points for every $5,000 in purchases with a rapid rewards card. And then the partner activity you mentioned, dude, that's a lot of things you could do right now to get up to A-list status, which again, just Companion Pass is separate from A-list status, which I think Companion Pass is the holy grail of Southwest. So
yeah,
really interesting for this kind of push, not late in the year, but getting towards the latter of the second half. I don't think I've ever seen 5 different promotions at the same time for you to quick fast track your way up to A-list status. But
no,
I don't know, man. If you get A-list preferred, then I would hope that you get whatever the premium seating is without additional costs. I don't think it's going to be recliner business class, but probably extra room. I hope Wi-Fi for free is included there. Hope free adult beverage is included, and hope early boarding is included. Look, my last flight was on a Southwest Biz fare that included all of that, and I thought it was a fantastic way to commute home from LaGuardia. So
yeah, they've
cut their schedule back a little bit from Atlanta. I think I got to get back on the Southwest train, man. More as we talked about it last week, and I've seen these things pop up this week. And that I keep getting the 120,000 point mailers for the business card out right now, which requires significant spend, but gives you a companion pass. Dude, am I really messing up here? Because we have several family trips coming up where the companion pass would be clutch to get one of the kids for free on some not so cheap routes, or holiday weekends down to Orlando where Southwest is still charging, or everybody's charging over $200. Am I missing out, man, by not taking advantage of this, especially even if it is going into next year, not knowing what I'm going to get?
To some degree, possibly, because I think just for clarification, there are 2 categories of A-list status today. We don't know what will happen in the future. I tend to think that the structure will stay, that there'll still be two categories. But the basic A-list status is 25 one-way flights or 35,000 tier qualifying points, and then A-list preferred is double that. For you, I don't think you're going to get there on one-way flights just because, like me, you sort of have to vary things based on where you're going. But I do think you could get to 25 one-way flights over the course of a year for sure. And you could combine tier qualifying points, because even without these bonus promos that are in place now, which are very generous, there are still all these other, promotions that are available on an ongoing basis. So you could use the Southwest shopping portal instead of the American Advantage shopping portal if you wanted to. My personal opinion, the reason why I think they're emphasizing elite status today is twofold. One, I mean, obviously they want to make people sticky, and status helps increase people's loyalty and increases their stickiness. But I also think too that if they have a decent number of people in these elite ranks ahead of time, it gives them the ability to sort of pre-engineer how they think these benefits are going to work based on how big their elite ranks are going to be. Because this is unique. I mean, if you think about all these other programs, United, American, Delta, they've had a large elite base for a long time that have had a bunch of valuable benefits. I think we'd agree that even though A-List gets some valuable benefits, it's not as valuable as, say, Delta Diamond or something like that. And so they have to figure out if they can actually offer an appropriate level of benefit. So to your point, it's like, well, if you get free premium seating, but there's 10 times more elites than seats on any given flight, and nobody can ever get those, and it's like Delta where you're stuck in the middle seat if you book 2 weeks out, then the status isn't that beneficial. So part of why I think they're doing this, obviously they want to boost the elite ranks, but I think they also want to make sure that whatever they're doing, that they understand what their demand is going to be for those benefits. And I think it means that they're likely, whatever they deliver, it's likely to be more consistent, maybe not more rewarding, but more consistent than the benefits that were offered by United or Delta.
So much going on there at Southwest in the news. It seems like every week for something different, especially even on the business side right now with a certain investor coming in hot and heavy, trying to exert some force over there. So continue to look forward to that. And I tell you, man, I am looking at Southwest flights more and more as like, man, I think if this was earlier in the year and that 120,000 offer popped up so I could knock that out and get it for the rest of this year and all of next year, I probably would have already jumped on it. Maybe a little too late in the year to fully maximize, but we'll continue to keep Southwest at the top of my searches.
Yeah, but are you getting to the point where you could maybe try to roll it over into getting it in January at this point? I mean, not today, but like, is that offer going to be?
Yeah, if they keep going, right? If they keep, like, if I get this offer in November and I meet to spend in January, then cha-ching, like all in. Yeah. So if it keeps going, then sure.
Yeah. So we need we need Southwest to keep this offer in place for like another 45 days for Richard, if we could.
Yeah, please. Just for me. Thank you. Appreciate that.
To all the Southwest people out there listening, please. So let's talk a little bit about Hyatt. We got a couple stories on the docket for Hyatt. I think, first off, let's talk about the status match offer that's out there. I'll tee this up and give the details for folks who are listening, and then we can talk about it in a little bit more detail. This came out a couple weeks ago, and you and I just haven't had time to discuss it on the show yet with everything else that we've had going on. So right now, what they've got through the end of October, you got eligible Advantage Gold, Platinum, Platinum Pro, and Executive Platinum members can register by October 31st, 2024. Need to stay 10 tier qualifying nights to keep Explorist status with Hyatt, or if you can cover 20 tier qualifying nights, then you would earn Globalist status through February of 2026. So let's just say that you're an American Elite right now, Richard, and you have the stays to do this, and maybe you're a Marriott or Hilton Elite. Are you in on this for Explorer status, and are you in on it for Globalist status?
What is the stay window? How many days do you have?
90 days.
90 days. So 20 and 90 days, you essentially got to be a road warrior. That's a lot of hotel nights. Or you got to be a crazy person that's going to go and mattress run this. Am I in it for Explorers? No, probably not, because if I'm loyal elsewhere, 10 nights to get an Explorer status is not going to be worth it. If I'm going somewhere where a Hyatt's routinely are, or I have Chase or Bilt and I can transfer into Hyatt to plus up, then I'm probably looking pretty hard at this. Globalist continues to be the best top tier status, in my opinion, and any chance that you have to earn it at a shortcut is probably well worth it. So I'm in it for Globalist. Yeah, I thought it was interesting. I have the inverse of this right now. So I've lost my American Executive Platinum, but I am Hyatt Globalist. So I got the email that says, hey, become an American Platinum Pro for the next 4 months.
Yep.
And I don't have any imminent plans to fly American, but why not jump on this? And then it gives you all the different loyalty points that you have to earn. I think every quarter, the way that they do it now, a little complicated, actually a lot complicated. But sure, I'm going to take 4 free months of Platinum Pro in case I happen to end up on an American plane. I think that's actually far more interesting than, chasing Hyatt status, because there's really not any way that I know of outside of this to get instant American status. Like, you can sign up. I don't know. I be honest with you, Americans kind of lost me in this really convoluted, complex status challenge they have, but I found that much more interesting rather than going for Globalists, like going for you can even go for Executive Platinum if you earn enough loyalty points. But that's still sitting in my inbox, but I'm going to wait until the very last minute to activate it so that my 4 months extends out to where maybe I can catch an American flight and use the benefits.
Yeah. So I don't disagree with you on whether it's worth trying to shoot for, Platinum Pro status. I think, for me, I really struggle with the fact that they've thinned out the schedule out of Dulles for me on American, and I was an American loyalist for a very long time. It's tough for me to want to build in an extra hour to get to national instead of going out of Dulles. But if I lived in an American hub, or if I lived in a city that had decent connectivity, like I think for you, Atlanta, you've got reasonable connectivity because you can hop to Charlotte, you can get up to, well, I guess you can't get to LaGuardia anymore.
No, we have a few options. You got Miami, Dallas, LA, Phoenix,
Philadelphia, yep.
and Boston. No, Miami. You got Miami. So I mean, like you can Chicago. You can go to Chicago. So like it is decent. That's why I have there were plenty of American flights I took advantage of previously, but obviously they've dropped my LaGuardia flight. So, dude, the second that flight comes back, American, I've been telling you guys that you cut it for almost 2 years now. Like I am all in the second you guys bring that LaGuardia service back.
Yeah, I have had for a long time Dulles Chicago service on American. It's been, over 10 years at this point. So
that's
without
really surprising, man. That's actually,
yeah. So for me, not being able to get to the Midwest makes it really hard for me to even use them as a backup carrier because I can get to Detroit or Minneapolis on Delta. So because of that, if I have to go to the Midwest and United doesn't have the best connecting times, or if I just, want a little bit, better chance of on-time reliability, all that stuff, then I got choices, but I can't get there on American because I've got to go to either Charlotte or Dallas, which, as you looked at a map once or twice, really hard to get to Nebraska or South Dakota from Dallas or Charlotte in any sort of a timely fashion. Let's talk about standard hotels. This is an interesting one. So I'll tell a brief story afterwards. So Hyatt acquired the Standard International Hotel Group, which involves two primary brands. The Standard, which I was familiar with prior to the acquisition, and Bunkhouse Hotels, which I wasn't. I guess. Either. Yeah. Okay. I was just saying, I'm curious if you'd ever heard of.
No.
Were you familiar with the Standard?
I was, yeah. The Highline New York City location has always kind of been their flagship, and we actually had a Bilt holiday party at the rooftop, top floor bar at the Highline a few years ago, and it was awesome place. Yeah.
No, I think the Standard's a really interesting brand. They had actually, before the pandemic, they were going to build a hotel in Vegas, and we were actually talking about putting a restaurant in the retail space of that hotel. That, to my knowledge, that project has been killed at this point. I don't think it's going to happen. But it's a really interesting, I think the Standard's a really interesting brand. It's small. According to the press release, there's only 10 hotels, but they're all really nice properties and located, in some pretty awesome places. So, I know this isn't a massive addition to Hyatt's portfolio, but again, it's one of those things where the luxury heavy part of Hyatt continues to grow. They continue to add properties that are places people want to redeem points at. The downside of the equation is, hey, as you and I know, there are some markets where you're not going to have the breadth of properties, where you're probably going to be forced to stay at a limited service property if you want to stay loyal to Hyatt. But along the lines of that status match, to your point, if I knew that my points could stretch to a stay at, one of these Standard hotels, around the world, it makes me more likely to want to try and squeeze in 20 nights and be globalist for the ability to be able to redeem my points at some place that's just, a bit more exciting.
Yeah, looking at the 10 locations, Highline New York City, which again I've been to, an amazing property. Is there a timeline yet for when these are going to be integrated? They don't ever really announce that.
I haven't seen that yet. If the passing indication, it's probably going to be a few months.
Yeah, but they should be pros at this by this point, right? They've folded in so many new brands into their program that they should really have a playbook down. Yeah. Highline New York City, also East Village New York City. I will 100% be trying these out the second that they are integrated into the program. Then you got Bangkok, London, Miami Beach, Hua Hin. Or Wei Hin, sorry for mispronouncing, I think it's a Vietnamese location. Ibiza in Spain, the Maldives. I'll be honest, never heard of the Standard Maldives. Bet it's awesome. Going to look it up after the show. Singapore and Melbourne, Australia for the 10 locations. So, pretty cool locations. And I'm certainly going to be trying out, like I said, the New York City places. And if I go to Miami, probably that as well. Really cool and trendy from the time that I've been there. I know people talk about it. I know people go out and get dinner and drinks there in New York City at both locations. So, hey, another great addition. Always curious to see where this is going to end up on the redemption. I'm going to go ahead and say it's probably going to be up at the top of the Hyatt chart. But, that's why we continue to earn as many Chase, Bilt, and Hyatt points as possible.
Yeah, I do think these properties are much more likely to end up in the Standard chart. Bunkhouse Hotels appears to have 12 hotels, Texas, California, Kentucky, which seems like sort of an outlier, in Mexico.
When you say the Standard chart, you mean the existing chart?
Oh, well played, Mr. Kerr. Yes, the existing hotel chart, the category 1 through 8 chart, not the Mr. and Mrs. Smith pinwheel chart. But yeah, there's a dozen bunkhouse properties. They look, interesting. They're like, trying to think of it like a comparable brand. They kind of sort of look like what an SLH property might look like if it was in the U.S. Sort of like kitschy, boutique-y sort of properties. So like the Austin Motel. I'm looking at, pictures of yellow beds and lemons on the wallpaper and stuff like that. And, it looks like it's on South Congress, so a decent location in Austin. So like, some like sort of interesting boutique-y sort of hotels, maybe not perfect for the business traveler, but again, being able to expand the map and have more dots on the map, I think is helpful and especially in a unique sort of brand sort of way. So we had 22 properties as of right now, and we'll see how these get integrated into the chart in the future. But
looks like also Dublin, Brussels, and Lisbon are under construction for the standard.
Yeah, I was gonna say they do have some hotels under construction. I didn't realize that they had a Dublin hotel. I'd heard about the standard in Lisbon because I go there on business regularly. It's a Dublin, Lisbon. What was the other one?
Brussels.
Interesting.
Brussels, Belgium.
I've been through Brussels a few times, but I've never stayed there. Have you?
See, just flown in once and taking the train through another time.
Yeah, I'm thinking about like Brussels is one of those places I've thought about spending a day in when I go over just to see it. But I think there's other places like Croatia and a few places in Spain that I haven't explored yet that are probably higher on the list.
Agreed.
All right, so let's take a break from happy stories and talk a little bit. Well, I guess I don't know if this was a sarcastic comment by you, but do you want to have your procedural compliance conversation?
Oh man, this hits a little bit close to home actually. So
yeah,
you see the news a few days ago as of recording. I think was it Tuesday, Monday, the 26th.
Yeah.
About 5 o'clock in the morning at the Atlanta airport in the tech ops section where Delta has all of their maintenance hangars. If you've ever flown in or out of Atlanta, you've seen these things right next to the runway. 3 employees were changing a wheel assembly on a 757 as part of routine maintenance. And 2 of them were tragically killed and a third very seriously injured when the tire and wheel assembly exploded. First thing I did was go to the Rival Dads group chat because, 1, 2, 3, 4 of the Rival Dads in our group chat work for Delta and 2 are actually in tech ops. So I immediately shot a message as soon as I saw the headline here locally to be like, hey, everybody good? Luckily, everybody is good. But I'll be honest, man. So talking to those guys, tragic news. One of the gents lives here in Noonan, Georgia, who lost his life. Wow. Again, a huge population of the city I live in, just 30 minutes south of the airport, do work for Delta. So that gentleman, unfortunately here, Noonan resident, did lose his life. But in talking to the Rival Dads who work, again, in tech ops, firsthand story from the meetings they immediately had afterwards, by all accounts, this is like firsthand source, is the gents did not depressurize the tire before starting to take the wheel assembly apart. So a lot of bolts hold the thing together. As soon as you get half the bolts off and you get this thing under immense pressure, like I think airplane tires like 250 PSI, because they take the entire weight of the plane when it lands and goes from 0 to 150 knots in a second, right? So you got to have pretty robust pieces of equipment down there. The other half of the bolts that were holding the thing on failed with that pressure, exploded and took the guys out. If you've actually been in one of these heavy maintenance hangars, you can look around where they do the wheel and tire shop and they have cages in there where they actually keep these things in like jail prison cages that are reinforced in case they explode in the shop.
Yeah.
And like actually after you refill a tire and wheel assembly, they have to go in one of these like prison cells is what it looks like for 24 hours to make sure that there's no leaks or spontaneous failures. And then they can use it on an aircraft because again, immense pressure. So it immediately took me back to my Navy days where the number one thing you talk about is procedural compliance. Like I guarantee you somewhere in the first 3 steps of this maintenance procedure was depressurize the tire. And again, this is coming from the guys who work in tech ops that live here in my neighborhood. And it's because you just get hurt or killed. And, best case scenario when you don't do procedural compliance, you just damage equipment, which can still be a multi-million-dollar mistake.
Sure.
It is heartbreaking that this might be the case. Relatively new employees, I think one was even a contractor and one a Delta employee. It's close to home here. If you're working out there doing anything, or if you're trying something new, even if you're just doing DIY stuff around your house, like rewiring something or replacing light fixtures, where step 1 is like turn the power off and then get a multimeter and test that the power is off. Because God forbid the guy who built your house didn't label the breakers correctly. Just don't assume anything, people. Just take that extra minute and follow those procedures and safety tips because it's just not worth it. And this really sucks for the folks around here.
Yeah, I agree. A couple of thoughts. First off, it's unbelievably tragic that these folks lost their lives. I think, like to your point about, labeling electrical panels, we've got a couple of horror stories from the restaurant industry where somebody flipped a breaker off and then, stuck something metal into a outlet that they thought was, now turned off and turned out it was still hot. So there's no such thing as too much precaution in those areas. I think it's also just a reminder, especially you talked about the cages for the tires and things like that. It's a reminder of how many aspects of air travel and maintaining airplanes is still a manual process. I think one of the things that I said to you in talking about this was I couldn't really think of a way that we could use existing technology to automate making this procedure safer. For example, some sort of an alarm if you're trying to loosen a lug nut that has too much pressure on it or something like that. I suspect that when you and I are old and gray, there will be more, safety features built into these sorts of things to make them safer. But for now, to your point, there's so many parts of this process that are highly manual and very dangerous. And, my daughter asked me when we were in Hawaii a few weeks ago, like, how often do tires get changed on airplanes? Like, I see the smoke come up from underneath the tires. And as it turned out, our very small plane had a flat tire at the gate, and we got to watch them change the tire. And to your point, like, there are a lot of precautions for these sorts of maneuvers when they happen. And it's, I think it's just a reminder of how many different things have to go right on a daily basis that I won't say surprised, because I think that would demean the work that the people who work for the airline industry do. But given there are so many different ways that airplanes can break, I think it's an incredible testimony to how the industry's safety record continues to improve on a yearly basis.
Yeah, I always think about, there's a famous pilot quote from recent years, and just to sum up you and me. Like, at the end of the day, you're in a metal tube full of incredibly high pressurized gases and flammable fluids going 500 miles an hour across the sky. And I are complaining that the Wi-Fi is not working, right? Sometimes you just lose, like, how
my
ridiculous
air nozzle
it is.
doesn't work.
Which, by the way, I hate being hot on an airplane, but man, it's really ridiculous when you sit there and every single time a plane starts going down the runway, you're like, how's this thing get up in the air again? Like, are we going to get up in the air this time? Like, it's just unbelievable, really. So, yeah, to your point, how we do it this safely the vast majority of the time is really impressive.
It is, yeah. We got a couple more stories to cover, but I also want to share one. I don't even think I shared this with you. I was on a United flight home the other day, and like like we talk a lot about United, and unfortunately a lot of it isn't super positive based on where the airline is, right now. And I would say I've had my fair share of crews that are just not great crews. And I boarded the flight, and I'm waiting in the gate area, and the pilot comes out to grab the microphone at the podium. And of course, the first thought that enters into my head is, oh no, here comes the 90-minute delay. It wasn't a 90-minute delay. He was grabbing the microphone to say good morning and to let us know what the weather was going to be like, and the flight might be a little bumpy and this and that, just sort of like a general greeting. And I'm like, well, that's kind of weird. Like, you don't see that a lot. And then we get on board the plane, and he comes out out of the galley, and he grabs the microphone there, which I've seen pilots do a time or two, and he addresses the plane again. But this time, what I thought was interesting and very rare for a pilot, he went through the whole, like, look, guys, like, we need to be respectful. And like, I thought we were going to go down the, like, make sure you don't disrespect my crew, blah, blah, blah. And he did give that message. But then he went on to say, he's like, let me give you some other examples of being disrespectful on a plane, because your fellow passengers, they want to get there in a friendly manner as well. He's like, so putting your feet on someone else's seat without your shoes on would be considered a disrespect. And he goes through like 3 or 4 things. He's like, and he goes, because maybe some of you feel like that's something you want to do today. And if that's the case, that's great. Just ring your flight attendant call button, and one of us will politely help you pack up your stuff, and we will absolutely find you a different flight home. Because today we're all going to be really respectful, and it's going to be just and it was like, wow, like, this guy is like, he's having a good day. So I was really impressed by that. And then I'm sitting there on the plane, and
somebody's feet goes up on your seat.
That would be great. But no, the flight attendant brings me a card from the captain with a note thanking me for being global services and all that stuff. And I get these from time to time, but it always feels like sort of a canned note. But because this pilot had taken such a personal touch in greeting us, both in the gate area and the flight, I'm like, all right, well, like, I'll reply to the guy. So I wrote him a note and said, hey, look, I've gotten these cards before, never replied to one, but your demeanor on the plane was so different from what I'm used to that I just want to reach out and say thank you. You made a very mundane flight a little bit easier. And I said, appreciate the attitude, and you made the flight a bit brighter, that sort of stuff. Just a couple hours later, he wrote back, thank you very much for taking time to write. I'm glad we were able to give you a positive experience. I hope that other crews will give you the same care, service, and positive experience that you received on my flight. Perhaps our paths will cross again. Just like a very genuine experience, not something I've had on a plane in quite a while with a crew, to be honest.
I love when pilots come out and give that speech. Like, it's just leadership 101, right? And just
Yeah.
because you're a pilot doesn't mean you're a natural leader. It just means you have a mechanically inclined brain that can do really complicated things like fly 500 people across the sky safely.
Yeah.
But I love when they show that leadership and just like let everybody know from the get-go, like, what's up? I'm in charge here. You're going to follow the rules. I can be as polite or as impolite as you require me to be.
Yeah.
But for the next, call it 2 hours, just shut up and watch your video and we'll all get there safely. Like that. Just to paraphrase, when they come out and just let you know in a friendly tone that just says, hey, I'm so-and-so. Great to meet you. Thanks for coming out. Here's a little bit about the flight. Look, like I just really appreciate somebody taking charge. And it just like, I am just a firm believer of, number one, people just want to be a part of something. And you feel like for whatever cheesy way it sounds, like you are now a part of this flight altogether. And number two, people want to be led. The vast majority of people, not everybody, but the vast majority respect and enjoy and like being led when it's, in a positive manner like that. And they just fall in line easier than if you're trying to come in and be reactive instead of proactive. So wish more flight crews would do that. No, it's not a part of the job. No, that's not everybody's personality. I totally get it.
Sure.
But when they do that, I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I do too. Definitely a nice touch. All right, a couple more things to close us out. First off, I think a recent Amex offer that I saw gives us another indication that maybe there's some more softening when it comes to hotel demand. Also talks about how valuable Amex offers are, but there are 2 Amex offers out now that people should be checking for. Spend $400 at an MGM Resort property and get $80 back. Spend $700 and get $140 back. This one runs through the end of November, so you can't use it for the Christmas season, but you can use it for the next couple of months. If you're able to nail the dollars, right at that amount, you get a 20% discount. You probably end up getting a little bit less than that because it'd be hard to nail it. But, I've seen plenty of Amex offers for, the Vegas hotels over the years, but I don't normally see them this big. And I wonder if this is just another indication of, hotels having trouble filling their rooms up.
I always want to know the economics behind these Amex offers. Like we can take guesses, but I just don't know who's exactly funding what. Yeah. And I guess so many people wouldn't do these unless they saw the incremental spend being driven by them. Like, tell me it was 145. And why are these numbers so random all the time?
I know.
So because somebody like me at the negotiating table.
Yeah. Yeah, they figure the thresholds that they want people spending money at for certain properties. But $400 gets you $80 back, and $700 gets you $140 back.
Yeah, super random. Like, are people? This is a question I have all the time. Like the things that I see people do now to save like $8. Like $8 is like a meal to some people, so I get it. But the people probably reading and following the content that I'm following, $8 is probably not make or break. So, like, is $80 off 400 enough to drive you instead of spending $250? Now you're going to get up to that 400 to feel like you got a deal. Like, this is the stuff I'm always so curious about. And I really wish I had the data. So if you're going to go and do it anyways, then do it. But at those levels, I would not encourage you to go spend that much more money in order to save. What would be nice if you're going to do it anyways, but not behavior driving deals, in my opinion.
Yeah, where I think they could drive behavior is in encouraging you to book either in Vegas versus, say, going to New Orleans, or also to pick MGM versus picking Caesars. So I do think, to your point, like it probably doesn't get people to spend more, but it may get them to make a different lodging decision. And I could talk a little bit about the economics of this because we do something similar with Five Guys. We do pay some program fees, which I probably can't disclose, but typically the way it works for us at much smaller dollar amounts are, if you're a new customer and you redeem the offer, we're essentially paying for the offer. So if we're giving you $10 back on a $50 burger purchase, that's costing us essentially $10 plus whatever our program fees are. And we're happy to do that because, we've asked the bank, through this system, and we know that you're on that specific card, you haven't, eaten a burger at Five Guys in X number of months or ever. So there's a variability behind these offers. But I also think it's a good reminder, as much as I think we both hate the coupon book, this is just one of those things where, these are, help pay for your annual fee, and you should be looking at your Amex offers.
Yeah, I still have the Blue Business Plus open, which is 2X on everything. And I'll be honest, I don't look at those Amex offers near enough because whenever I get the Amex offer emails now, it's like 2% off Dell or like 3% off some service I've never heard of. And I'm like, this is so inapplicable to me. But yeah, there's probably some gems that I missed in there.
No, I think like this goes back to like wandering the aisles at Costco on a random Tuesday. You need to sift through your Amex offers. You need to accept a bunch of them so you can get more than the 100 that are on view, and just you need to do that once every couple of weeks if you're going to get the value out of these higher annual fee Amex cards.
I will do that, even though my Blue Business Plus annual fee is $0. It's the way I like it.
I know. I'm carrying the
The way I
higher.
like it.
I'm carrying the gold and the business platinum. All right, close us out with the last topic. You want to talk a little bit more about what I think is one of the biggest innovations right now in the, I won't say credit card space because it doesn't really matter what card you're using, but talk a little bit more about the Bilt Walgreens partnership in terms of FSA and HSA spending. I think the screenshots, I haven't tested it yet, but I think the screenshots look awesome.
Yeah, we've got a lot of great feedback. So 4 days ago, as time of recording this, I hope everybody saw that, yes, you can now link any credit or debit card to your Bilt wallet and get bonus points at Walgreens. 1x for anything, 2x for Walgreens branded items, and anytime you get a prescription refilled, it's a flat 100 points. That's great. And again, that stacks with any card that you have. So I've linked my Chase Freedom Unlimited, getting 6x at drugstores, and now I'm getting 7x or 8x. That's not the game-changing part, right? So FSA, HSA, what we can do now is you link any debit or credit card to your Bilt account, and you link your HSA, FSA debit card to your Bilt account. You can now go use whatever credit card that you have linked at Walgreens. We will send you an itemized receipt that says, hey, did you know these 3 out of the 8 items you bought are eligible for your HSA, FSA reimbursement? And in one click, pull those funds off your debit card. Excuse me. And we essentially apply a statement credit to the original form of payment. The reason we did this, right, is there's $4 billion a year that go unused and returned to employers for FSA that's use it or lose it because it's too hard for the program to use. Number one, you have to carry this separate debit card, or you have to submit a receipt, which both of them pains in the butt. You don't get any rewards on that debit card, and you don't know what qualifies. So we've solved both of those now. You're getting rewards. We're telling you what qualifies, and you can instantly reimburse without having to carry your physical debit card. So many people have gotten behind this. Like, this is an easy story for politicians to share. Washington loves it. A lot of people in conversations reach out, and regulators we had to go through to make this happen. This drives additional spend at Walgreens, so they're thrilled about it. And you as a member or an FSA, HSA holder should also be thrilled about this because there's so many things eligible for reimbursement that might seem trivial. But again, not everybody has all of this money just to spend, like sunscreen, Band-Aids, over-the-counter cough and cold medicine, like all of this stuff that some people just don't buy because it actually does impact their budget. Like, we have solved this headache for you, and hopefully not all of that money goes back to employers as more and more people adopt this. Like, this is a whole new industry for us at Bilt. This is into healthcare. This is solving real world problems. Like, again, we started with rewards on rent. We've been very outspoken that home buying and mortgages is coming later this fall. We increased people's credit scores, and now we're trying to make it easier for people to use their HSA, FSA funds in a way where literally everybody wins. So tons of interest from this. All kinds of new people who've never taken a look at Bilt before talking about it. We hope to see really high adoption, but man, it's just really exciting to be able to work with this level of technology and the people who can build this stuff. And again, when I tell everybody, like, my job is to, like, sit there and talk points and miles and talk to airlines and hotels. Like, we have like the best financiers and engineers and project managers and thought leaders in other areas that are at the table with me every day conquering these real world problems. Just from a complete selfish standpoint, I'm like, oh my God, you guys are so smart. I'm just like, anybody want to talk about the airplanes today? They're like, dude, we're solving, multi-billion real world problems over here. You go play airplanes in the corner. They don't really talk to me like that, but it's just a good perspective, and we're excited about it. And like I told everybody, like, a lot more coming, and by the time you've listened to this, like, rent day will have already been executed with 2 transfer bonuses plus the resort pass offer, which also has an AMEX offer, by the way. So stack our buy one, get one with the AMEX offer and really save like 75% off a resort spa or pool day for 2 people. Plus the Virgin Voyages offer. Just a lot going on in the day job, man. It just continues to explode, and it's certainly a lot, but it's been a lot of fun as well.
Well, I think as we saw from last week, it's not really about the talking about airplanes part. I think they keep you around because you're the eye candy. I do want to touch on one thing.
The Bilt thirst trap. Yeah.
The Rhett Butler of Miles podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Bilt.
The one thing I'll leave on this, from an employer standpoint, and I know not all employers are this way. If I offer a benefit to someone, I want them to use it. I don't want to take it back. If we offer health insurance contributions and nobody takes us up on it, then I don't really offer a benefit. So we're actually getting into extending mini-med plans, and we're talking about FSA, HSA plans. I think, this sort of stuff is really critical for hourly workers in my sorts of industries, being able to save, protect the tax impact of funds like this. So the fact that you guys provide a roadmap for that, to me, is pretty interesting and cool. And I'm looking forward to testing it myself. I told my wife yesterday morning, I go, oh, by the way, we're switching all of our prescriptions to Walgreens. And she's like, why? You don't like Walgreens. You prefer Wegmans. They've always taken great care of us. I'm like, well, because we can earn points.
I was doing quick math though. I was like, how many prescriptions do we fill in this house every single time somebody's got boogers or a cough? I'm like, it's like a extra free Hyatt night every year just by filling our prescriptions at Walgreens. Might as well do that.
Exactly. Speaking of Hyatt nights, you got any coming up or are you home for the next week?
I don't know, man. There's a lot of forks in the road here as we head into Labor Day weekend. Thomas and I actually have tickets to Denmark and Bielan next week. Don't know if we can take that because it's the first week of baseball season, of course. So not really sure where we'll be the next time I record.
All right, well, we'll have to wait and see. I'm going to be getting down to Blacksburg to visit our daughters. I got a couple of nights at the Hyatt Place Blacksburg, which should take me to 105 Hyatt nights for the year. I'm trying to round the corner and hit that 150 at the end of the year to get my wife those free nights at one of the Miraval properties. Other than that, no airplanes for me until we record again, unless something changes drastically. And I really hope it doesn't change drastically because I'm getting to the point that I really like sleeping in my bed.
Heard that, man. Been home for like 2.5 weeks now. It's lovely.
It's a beautiful thing. All right, Mr. Kerr, I know we went long today. Get back to the day job. Make some more cool things for us for Bilt while you can, if you don't mind.
Working on it.
All right. Well, all that and a whole lot more. We did miss our final update on Fantasy Springs for my Tokyo trip. We'll try and get to that next week. But we had a bunch of rambling travel topics today that we wanted to cover. So lots more stuff to cover next week. Until we upload again, we've got miles to go. Johnny, be good. Oh, it's going to be so much fun. It's going to be so much. Yeah, that's right. Brush the mic off. There you go.
Oh, it's my screen. It's a little dot on the mic on my screen.
Oh, God, Jeremiah, please use it.
There's a little speck. I was like, why isn't that going away? And then it's on the screen.